for our feature presentation.
He'll be fire on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
Watson, touchdown! Hunter Renfrow.
He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball advantage, guys!
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
What happens when you're rusty after 2 days off.
Wow. Greetings and a good afternoon and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. We're on the all-new JB and Goldwater app. Make sure you've downloaded that. It is free in your phone. You can watch and listen to our program daily there from 12 until 2 p.m. and always go back and watch or listen in its entirety whenever you choose to do so. If you miss our program live Monday through Friday on the JB and Goldwater app. If you're watching to the right of your screen is Darren Goldwater. I'm to the left, Jamie. And again, we're here for another couple of hours. Only one more day after today, Darren and I will be on break from Wednesday until Monday, January the 4th, when we return. We're going to spend some time with our families like all of you, and we hope that you all enjoy that. But we are jam-packed between now and then, certainly. 843-321-8893 is our phone number. It is also our text line, and it is also open. And so are all of our social media pages across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater, and individually at Sports Radio JB at Darren Goldwater. Coming up today at 12:30, generally on Wednesdays, but Monday this week because of the short week, JC Shurburtt with thebigspur.com, owner of thebigspur.com. He'll join us at 12:30, so about 25 minutes away. Bunch to get to with him. We do have ESPN and the SEC Network's Mike Morgan at 1 p.m. today, and Clemson's Reggie Merriweather at 1:30. So it will be really full from all the weekend stuff. Clemson, of course, blows out Notre Dame. We've got the college football playoff in place, bowl season. We've got the Army story. What's going on at Tennessee? How about Auburn? Gamecocks, they're bowling against UAB. We're going to talk about all of that. We got some hoops to get to. We've got believe it or not, some college baseball news to get to here in just a little while as well, and pretty much everything in between. So if you'd like to be a part of our conversation, the text line 843-321-8893 is open, and so is our social media. And now I can turn it over to you, Mr. I will stop the open whenever I feel like it.
Yeah, that's a good name for me right now. It's a simple one-button miss, but I'll tell you what, it was not as much of a hassle as putting together the basketball hoop. That took me 3 days for about a 10, maybe 12 screw project, but I finally got it done. I am not the handiest of handymen, but I got it done, and all the neighborhood kids love it. So it's a good start to Christmas week, even though it was the final day of Hanukkah gift. That's why she's already got it.
There you go. There you go. Merry Christmas, everybody. We hope that you have a wonderful week with your families, and hopefully we can keep you entertained over the next couple of days here on our program. Again, the text line, maybe you've got a question, comment, concern, something that happened over the weekend in sports you'd like to shoot to us, do it. And you can also give us a call at 843-321-8893, and we'll plug you right on through. JC Shurburtt in 25 minutes. But the bowl season is now official, and it starts today, actually, at 2:30 p.m., just up the road in Myrtle Beach, the Myrtle Beach Bowl. And its inaugural season, or inaugural game, App State in North Texas from Brooks Stadium, the home of the Chanticleers, 2:30 on ESPN and the ESPN app. So looking forward to that. Tomorrow, the Idaho Potato Bowl plays with Tulane and Nevada. You've also got the Boca Raton Bowl tomorrow, UCF and BYU tomorrow night on the 23rd. Coming up on Wednesday, you've got La Tech and Georgia Southern in the New Orleans Bowl. That could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
The Montgomery Bowl is this week. Christmas Eve has the New Mexico Bowl. Christmas Day, by the way, the Camellia Bowl. That game could be fun too. Marshall and Buffalo. So a bunch to get to this week. And obviously the day after Christmas at noon, you got Coastal and Liberty in Camping World Stadium in the Cure Bowl on ESPN. At noon on ABC, you've got South Carolina and UAB in the Gasparilla Bowl. We got plenty to get to on that. But obviously yesterday, I should say, everybody saw the college football playoff rankings come out, and everybody's got something to say about them as well. They are what I expected them to be.
Yes.
I mean, after what happened this weekend, right, I think we all expected – I expected those four, and I expected those four in that order.
So we had a text chain going on with a couple of the guys in the neighborhood. There were 5 or 6 of us on the text chain, and it was, here's what I think should happen. Here's what I think will happen. I was like, listen, here's what's going to be. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. Yeah. Well, shouldn't ain't it? Well, I'm not going to tell you what should happen or shouldn't happen. I'm just going to sit here and tell you this is exactly what's going to happen, because Notre Dame and Clemson aren't going to be 2-3. They're not going to play each other again, but they're both going to be in there, and it's going to set up with Alabama playing Notre Dame and Clemson playing Ohio State. There it is.
There it is. That's it. Yeah, absolutely. And, we've said this for weeks, and I don't know how much of a difference it would have made, but I feel like the gap would have been closer, and I still don't even know what the gap necessarily was. But A&M losing that game against Ole Miss, not being able to play the game, makes them 8-1 instead of 9-1. It would have been the second most wins ever in the history of the league in the regular season at 9. And that's just because Bama went 10-0 this year. Obviously, they've never played more than an 8-game schedule. So you wonder how much that would have factored into it. But at the end of the day, it didn't. Let me ask you this question, all right? And we're going to talk to both JC and Mike Morgan about this today. But let me ask you. All right, name 2 teams not in the college football playoff that you would not want to play right now.
Florida. Even though they lost to LSU, Florida is high on that list. I'm going to go A&M Oklahoma tied, even though I think the biggest surprise for me was Oklahoma jumped up to number 6. I figured they'd just slide Cincinnati there in for fun. Yeah. But
you and I talked about that on Friday.
Yeah, but I'll put 3 in there and I don't know, twist your question a little bit.
What about Georgia?
Yeah, but it's hard. I haven't seen Georgia now in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I know.
So what have you done for me lately? Yes, they got better with Daniels, and I wouldn't want to play them.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned A&M. You mentioned Oklahoma.
Yes.
You mentioned Florida.
Yes.
And you mentioned Georgia.
Yeah.
Before you mentioned Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And I have a point to this. Dabo Swinney, by the way, his coaches poll. I'm going to read this to you, 1 through 11. I'm going to read this. If you haven't heard or seen about this, this is Dabo Swinney's coaches poll, published now in USA Today. 1, Bama. 2, Clemson. 3, Notre Dame. 4, A&M, according to Dabo Swinney. 5, Florida. 6, Georgia. 7, Cincinnati. Let me stop there. Woo, 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 woo. How many losses does Florida have?
They've got 2.
No, they have 3 because they lost the SEC.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
They have 3. How many does Georgia have? 2.
They have 2.
Right. Last week, everybody was talking about how much of a sham it was that those teams were ahead of Cincinnati. And even after the rankings came out, Dabo clearly thinks they're better than Cincinnati as well, just by virtue of those rankings. He also thinks A&M's ahead of Ohio State. Notice I stopped at 7 at Cincinnati. Haven't said Ohio State yet, have I? 8, Oklahoma, according to Dabo Swinney. 9, Iowa State. 10, Coastal Carolina. 11, Ohio State. Dabo Swinney thinks that Coastal Carolina is better than Ohio State, according to his poll. Now, does he really think that? Right. Or does he think that they're just not deserving of being ranked any higher because they haven't played enough games?
There you go. And is it they're not deserving, or is it part of his mantra that's been going on now for a couple of weeks of stumping really for the ACC to get a couple of teams, and he's been pushing for Ohio State not to get into the playoffs because they haven't done enough. And a lot of that, I think, was in the event Notre Dame beats Clemson, trying to make sure that Clemson gets in. So that doesn't happen. This, I think, is a little foolish of Dabo here, because he has given Ohio State, they need nothing else on their bowl. Nope. Nothing.
No.
They can put this ranking smack up in the locker room. Yeah. It can be posted in every locker. It could be posted on the main board.
They'll probably have T-shirts of that made.
It should be everywhere. They don't need to see anything else other than the fact that Dabo Swinney thinks they're the 11th best team in the country and they're playing them in the college football semis.
Yeah.
Dabo should have thought about that one a little bit better, because he doesn't think they're the 11th best team in the country. He's just doing it to do it because he thinks he can, because he can. It's a poll. You can do whatever you want.
Right.
There's no way he actually believes they're the 11th best team in the country.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think so, but you're right. He's provided bulletin board material, no doubt about it. As it pertains to the playoff in itself, there is an argument that A&M should be in there. I get it. I get that argument. I personally think A&M should be in there.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I've thought this for a while. I think A&M is one of the top 4 teams in the country. I don't want to overreact, because we've had enough of this conversation over the last week or so, and we have to remember something. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're going to get to the Army thing here in a little bit. All right. So that's another part of, like, it's just strange. It's just a strange year. And you've got all these, you got Alabama's played 11 games, and they're all SEC games, by the way. Clemson's played 11 games. Ohio State's played 6. Notre Dame's played 11. A&M's played 9. Oklahoma's played 10. Florida's played 11. Cincinnati's played 9. I mean, it's all a little bit different here. Georgia's played 9. But I think what this has shown you is that there are what appears to be, and I love what people have been saying, this is a college football invitational, not playoff. There appears to be 4 teams in a college football playoff, and then there appear to be some of the hottest teams in the country not competing for a national championship. And I know that we're in a college football playoff, and I know that has to be, every conversation you have about this, that has to be in the middle of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to lead off with, we're in a pandemic, things are screwy. But I do think this also provides some additional insight as to why expanding the college football playoff is probably a smart thing to do right here. Because you can take this argument of less games played versus all conference games versus, whatever you want, and you can expand it to other years when, you play equal number of games, but you're also then comparing resumes, and you're comparing resumes based on conference schedules and conference standings. And how good is this team? Well, how good is this team versus the 9 games they played out west in the Pac-12 versus this team that played 8 games in the ACC? There are always different points of comparison when you have to create this college football playoff. And this year, those points are magnified because of the playoff and the different number of games and things like that. But it does, I think, provide an additional picture of why this thing needs to be strongly considered to be expanded in the near future. Like, if you had an 8-team playoff right now, and you can't say, well, it would be the top 8 teams in the rankings, because that's just maybe not true.
Mm-hmm.
Could be. I mean, we don't know how they would have selected them.
Yes.
We don't know that. But if you went by this, you would have Bama and Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have Clemson and Florida. Now, I know Florida's got 3 losses, but you might want to look past that. And I get it. All right. Okay. They got beat by LSU.
Bad loss.
They also just played Alabama to a 6-point game in Atlanta. Bama. Everybody's far and away clear-cut number 1, right? 52-46. They put 46 on the board against Bama. Okay. You got Ohio State at 3. You think they want to run into Oklahoma right now at 6?
No.
And that's my point. Like, okay, do we all truly believe these are the 4 best teams in football? You don't think that Oklahoma could beat Ohio State? Y'all don't think A&M could beat Notre Dame? Come on. I think they could. I'm not saying they would, but I think that they could.
That's the important thing there.
Right? So, like, there's and by this, Georgia would be left out in lieu of Cincinnati by these rankings right here. But I don't want to play Georgia right now. They played their best football at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Remember, Trey Essex was on with us on Friday, and he said, in the college football system where we have it right now, the Giants never would have had a chance to beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, right? Because the Giants got hot at the end of the year, right as the playoffs came about, and ended the Patriots' perfect year. That's kind of what we're looking at here. Even though Florida lost to LSU, that game against Alabama tells me they can beat anybody in the country. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about Oklahoma. You can make that case for Georgia like you just did. So there is... it's hard to say this isn't the best case we've ever had for expanding the playoffs. But on the back end of that, Brad Crawford from 24/7 Sports, he had an article out today comparing the BCS to the college football playoff. Every single year, this one included, it's been the BCS computers would have laid it out the exact same way as far as it comes to the playoffs. It gets a little bit murky halfway down the 10.
You're talking about the top four.
Four. Yeah.
Right.
So last week I'm sitting here saying I would like a combination of people who can be objective or subjective and computers who are just going to spit out the facts. But how much difference is there actually going to be if you get to that point? So maybe you just do go top 8, throw them into the pool. 1 plays 8, 2 plays 7, down the list we go. And maybe we're overthinking this. Maybe it's just, here are the rankings. Forget conference championships. Forget group of 5. Forget anything. It's just 1 through 8 as the committee ranks them. Bam, they're your playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Like I think I personally believe in any expansion of college football playoff that there needs to be, like, you have to be rewarded for doing something. So is that winning a conference championship gets you in there or whatever? What I really want to see, no matter how it shapes out, if they're ever able to expand this. By the way, I'm going to go ahead and make a prediction. They will be expanding the college football playoff at some point.
Yes.
I want the best teams and I want the hottest teams, because that's what makes it the most fun at the end of the year. Like when you watch college basketball, what makes that tournament great? It's upsets, right? It's the hot teams getting hot, or it's teams getting hot at the right time and finding a way to do something magical that time of the year. Same thing in college baseball. Totally different. We're never going to 64 teams. I think that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about being able to expand yourself to create the best playoff that you can. Back in 2008, Fresno State won the World Series. All right, they were the last team selected.
Yeah, like the last.
They were the 64th team. They were a 4 seed.
Yep.
It was, but they were the hottest team in the country, and they were able to. Now that's one case, right? Generally, the best team in the country is either in it or they win it. All right, and that's more than likely what it would be in college football. But the stat that there's now been 28 teams, 28 programs that have competed in the college football playoff system, but only 11, actually. 28 spots filled by 11 programs. That's not good. That's not a good stat at all. It's a terrible stat for the sport.
And only 6 wins. 6 teams have wins.
Only 16
of the 11.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's not a good stat to me. Like, and this is where you and I back in April or May, somewhere in there, did this little fire drill, this little exercise of how do you grow the sport? You grow the sport through creating opportunity. You can't create opportunity unless you grow grow the platform in which they're competing on to win a championship, which is the college football playoff in this instance here. So, I mean, I still stick with what I've said for a while. Go to 16, because I don't see any reason not to go to 16. Why not? You're still going to get the 4 best teams in there. Matter of fact, I'm going to make a prediction. If you went to 16, you're going to also get the best 8 teams in there. Like, I mean, it's just going to happen. And then you're also rewarding conference champions. You're also rewarding the hottest teams in the sport and things like that. And at the end of the day, you let them play it out and they get there. And I think it makes the regular season more valuable for more teams, not just for like 6 teams. It's more valuable for like 20 teams at the end of the year to try to get into the top 16. But that's not where it's going to go. If they expand, it's probably going to go to 8, maybe 12, probably 8 though, and things like that. So, or you could go to 12 and have some first round buys and stuff like that. If you get a top 4 seed, you get a bye and things of that nature. There's ways to do it, but I think the way we're doing it right now is wrong.
I think 8 is going to. They've been against the expansion for a while. Most of that has to do with the television contract. I don't think they're going to jump 4 past 8. That's a huge jump for them to make, to more than double the playoff field. One of the arguments is it's going to extend too far, school, yada, yada, yada.
Oh, give me a break.
Right. Okay.
That's ridiculous.
I get that. But this would then fly, if you have buys in the system, it flies directly in the face of that, because then you're just extending it to extend it just to add a couple of more teams. So I think 8 is going to be the number. I don't think we'll see it next year, but I do think the momentum has grown enough this year that maybe one good thing to come out of the pandemic is an expansion of the playoffs.
Yeah, I think this contract will end before it ends.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Before it's
they'll blow it up.
Yeah, they'll blow the deal. Well, look, money changes everything. And if ESPN, who has the rights to the TV deal here at Disney, comes in and says, look, this is what we want. We want 8. We want 12, whatever it is. And we want to do it not next year because we don't have enough time to prepare for it, but in 2 years. We need 2 years. They'll do it. They'll do it. Forget it. It's all about money. You figured that out. How do we know it's all about money? Because 2-8 Carolina's in a bowl, not Army. I mean, that's how you figure that out, right? It's all about bowl tie-ins and money and this, that, and the other, and yada, 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 yada. I mean, that's what it comes down to. If there's enough money to be thrown around, expand the college football playoff, get more teams in there, and so on and so forth, and there you go. I'll tell you what would be interesting if you went beyond it. Like, you would have to go way beyond 8 to get a team undefeated like Coastal Carolina in there. Right now, they're ranked 12th by the committee.
It doesn't matter how far we go with the playoff. There's always going to be, if we go 8, 9, and 10 are pissed. If you go 12, 11, or 13 and 14 are going to be upset. If you go 16, 17, and 18 are going to be upset.
Yeah.
That's inevitable. But the farther you go, the bigger you make this thing, the smaller that argument is going to. It'll be loud from the fan base, but in reality, the smaller that argument becomes. It's all right, we're already opening this thing up, and now you're still on the outside.
Yeah,
sorry.
At some point in time, at some point in time, you just got to be the top 12 team, top 12 teams or top 16. But if you make true criteria to get, like, we don't have real criteria. We hear something every year. Well, they value conference championships. Well, they value strength of schedule. Well, what is it? I mean, do you really value conference championships? How much do you value? Notre Dame's not a conference champion. They're in there this year. You know, I mean, A&M wasn't even playing for a conference championship. They're ranked ahead of Florida and Oklahoma, who won a conference championship. So, I mean, like, you can kind of cut holes into every little thing out there. But if you value conference champions and you just value really good football teams who maybe stumbled earlier in the year, but I mean, come on, seriously, dude. I mean, what if you lose the first game? Florida and Tennessee lead off the season, and Tennessee somehow beats Florida, and Florida doesn't lose a game, the rest of the year until they're upset on a game-winning field goal in the conference championship, and then all of a sudden, they're left out. Like, that wouldn't be fair. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, the playoff should reward champions, but the playoffs should also reward the best football teams, a combination of both, the best way possible to do that. And like Coastal, do I think that Coastal's better than any of those top 4? No. Do I think they're better right now than any of those top 9? No. I can't say that about Iowa State. They beat Louisiana and beat Iowa State, so I don't know that to be true. Mm-hmm. This is what I don't think that. But should they? Here's the question, right? Do they deserve an opportunity to prove that?
So
that's the question.
It's a two-part question here that you just put together, because number one, you've got let's get the people in who deserve it, and let's also find the best teams out there. So we need to find a way to make sure we have the best 4 or 8, and also those who deserve it most. And then at the same time, are you going to just simply reward it just to put somebody in there because they have done everything in front of them? Like Cincinnati and Coastal have done everything they can. Everything in front of them they have accomplished. And yet they're still out. But if you put them into this playoff, do you actually think that they could make noise in this 4-team thing? No, I don't. I also didn't think Coastal would touch BYU.
Right.
Matt made a good point on here. He said we should go to 6 instead of 8. 8 wouldn't always be competitive, but my point is 4 isn't always competitive. We see blowouts all the time.
No.
And let's see, Notre Dame opened as a 17.5-point dog against Alabama. My guess is that number goes up. My guess.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So yeah, I was shocked that it opened at 17. I figured it would open in the 20s.
Yeah. Well, we can't always, I mean, I can't worry myself with what game is going to be competitive. Like, I think if Georgia and Alabama played tomorrow, that game would be more competitive than Notre Dame and Alabama. And Georgia is playing good football at the end of the year, but they're ranked 9th. All right. So that's what I think.
Yes.
That's no different from somebody thinking, well, Notre Dame and Alabama won't be competitive. That's just what we think. We don't know until we see it. And you can't get more. The way this system is designed right now,
mm-hmm.
You cannot get more. Mike Morgan's coming up in 35 minutes, and he said this for 3 years, and he's not wrong. You can't get more than 4 or 5, sometimes maybe 6 teams who can truly win it every single year until the sport grows. And what do it not grows in popularity, grows in when you start the season, the number of teams that can truly win a championship, and they can't grow until they get opportunity. So every year, I mean, we didn't we play this game on Thursday? 2023. Let's go to 2023. Make a prediction of who's going to be in the college football playoff right now in 3 years.
Okay.
I tell you, 2 are going to be in there.
Yeah. Look at the screen right now. Clemson's going to be in that discussion. Alabama's going to be in that discussion. Notre Dame will be until they either play themselves out or play themselves in.
Ohio State's going to be in it.
Ohio State will be in that discussion.
All right,
and then
throw 2 more names out, and I'll bet you I know who you're going to throw out.
I'm going to say Oklahoma. Right.
Yep.
And then are you going to want to take a team out of the Pac-12 because it's that league? Yeah, maybe.
Right. But if not, what? Georgia?
Sure. Okay.
LSU, Florida. Got any more? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is that fun for the sport? Like, how is that fun for this sport?
I hear what you're saying. I don't know the right way to grow the sport. And we've gone back and forth about this a lot. One of your main points is if you expand the playoffs, it can help grow the sport because as a recruit comes on to, it's easy to use Coastal as an example. As they come onto Coastal's campus, they can see a banner, college football playoff. We were one of the 8, 16, whatever it is, in the playoffs, and that is enticing. I don't know if that banner does enough to grow the sport. Does giving more opportunities grow the sport? When basketball expanded to 64 and then 68, did that grow the sport? I don't know. I don't remember the tournament before it was at least 64. So I can't really speak to how much that grew the sport. Maybe JC can, maybe Mike can. I don't know. But I guess that would be a question I would want to answer. But 60 is way too much for football. So
no. Yeah, absolutely not.
I think maybe you're onto something in the fact that the first question maybe should be how do we grow the sport? And then once we figure out how we can make parity more of an actual thing, then we can figure out the best way to put the playoffs together.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's certainly a cluster. I think what you said earlier, though, and I know we got to go to break. I think what you said earlier was actually right on cue, though. I think we think too much about it. Like we think way too much about this. Like I'm trying to think pretty simple here. Like, all right, what do we want right now? The way this system is designed right now today, what do we want? We want the best 4 teams, right?
Yep. You
really think we can't get the best 4 teams by having 8? Do we really think we can't get the best 4 teams by having 16? I think we can. The question is it good for the sport? And if the answer is yes to 8 or 12 or 16 or whatever it is, I probably would be careful about going further than that at all.
Yeah.
But like if you have 10 championships right now, you have 10 conference championships, you got the group 5, you got the power 5. I mean, is it if you want the best 4 teams, how are you not going to get the best 4 teams with 8 or 16? We can't be that wrong.
And look,
right? And there's more money, right? Don't we all love the playoff system?
You're right. We will get if we expand this thing, the best 4 will be included in 8, 10, 12, 16, whatever it is.
Right.
As it stands right now, is the best 4 included? I don't know.
Exactly.
But there's a very good maybe here, right? I mean, Ohio State at full strength, they are dangerous. I do think Ohio State.
By the way, they had 22 players out this week.
Right, including their top receiver, and Justin Fields' hand clearly was not okay. When they're at full strength, they are dangerous. I think they're going to give Clemson a really good game.
Yeah.
Notre Dame has a chance to prove that they are one of the top 4 teams by hanging in with Alabama. I mean, they don't need to beat them, but do something like what Florida did. And then I'll shake my head and say, okay, sure. Yeah. You're one of the top 4 teams and you're in there. And then A&M for me, if that plays out and Notre Dame and Ohio State play their 2 games competitively, then I'll be very happy to sit back and say, okay, I think we did get the best 4.
Yeah, safe assumption. There's no doubt about that. All right, time for a timeout. When we return, JC Shurburtt, owner of thebigspur.com, we'll talk about the Gamecocks bowl opportunity against UAB this weekend. How many players are available for this game for South Carolina? Shane Beamer, his staff, and much, much more. So hang tight. JC Shurburtt up next right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control.
Is your old car really scary? Does it look dreadful or smell awful? Don't be frightened. There's never been a better time to trade in your spooky old car. Stokes Volkswagen just received a new shipment of the VW Atlas and VW Crossport. But Here's what makes that even sweeter. Every new Atlas and Crossport is $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, every 2020 Volkswagen is available with 0% financing. That's right. You get both the huge discount and 0% financing. So if you want to play trick or treat at other dealerships, that's okay. Come see us at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or visit stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
Merry Christmas!
Keith Gunther here with McFadden Pest Control, wishing you all a happy holiday season. The only outdoors we want coming inside your home this time of year is the Christmas tree. McFadden Pest Control wants to make sure your family has a safe and enjoyable holiday season. And the best way we know how to do that is to make sure your homes are pest-free. We've been protecting the Low Country for over 40 years. Families trust us. We hope you will too. We're wishing you and your family a Merry Christmas from the entire McFadden Pest Control family. McFaddenPestControl.com.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
Your online radio. The new online radio that makes you happy. Funny how melody. You're gonna wish one day you were sitting on a gate of a truck by the lake. Yes, I love good cold beer and mustard on my fries. I love a good loud honky-tonk. It rocks on Friday nights.
And you were listening to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
R-A-S-P-C-T. She's Halloween when a roll meets a bubble. A real eater jammer. A wildlife one. Yeah, you only get one, and I wouldn't want another.
12:32. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. Monday afternoon. Merry Christmas, everybody out there. December the 21st coming up. The greatest holiday of the year, at least in my opinion, at the end of the week. Mike Morgan with ESPN and the SEC Network. He is ahead at 1 o'clock this afternoon. We do have Reggie Merriweather at 1:30 today. And
potentially JC coming up right now. If you're texting with him, I just sent him another link.
Okay.
So maybe that is going to work. If not, we'll just jump back over there to Zoom.
Okay. All right. He will be on here momentarily. Reggie, of course, had the game this weekend between Notre Dame and Clemson, the rematch, and he's going to break all of that down for you. And obviously, Tigers now once again in the college football playoff. Just remarkable. 10 straight years of 10 or more wins for the Clemson football program. One of only 3 teams in history to have 10 straight seasons of 10 or more wins. Alabama and Ohio State have both done that in their history as well. It's an incredible stretch right now for the Tigers. By the way, something we're going to get to is what is going on in Knoxville, an internal investigation right now into cheating within the Volunteers football program. And one might have to question whether this was leaked to try to halt the future of Jeremy Pruitt as the head football coach of the Volunteers.
It's an easy assumption to make. We got JC on right now. What do you think, man? Where'd that leak come from?
Wow, and it was interesting, the outlet that they chose, too. It was kind of I'd never heard of those guys before, Fan something sports or something like that. And, just based on the reaction when they were asked in the media setting about it and the statements the university made, there has to be some truth to it. So I was kind of surprised at how it leaked and where it leaked and that there was any credibility given to it at all by the University of Tennessee. But I guess, that's kind of the way it goes. And so, we'll see kind of what happens moving forward with that. But I'm very hesitant sometimes when, there's a talk of an investigation to really kind of go out with the pitchforks and fire and brimstone and saying, see, these guys are dirty or whatever, because we don't know exactly what it is. I mean, it could be something as simple as a minor compliance issue that they're looking into. Secondary violations are very common. The rule book is way too thick. But it was interesting, the timing of it right there before, they had to go play Texas A&M and with the turmoil, I guess, surrounding Jeremy Pruitt and his tenure at Tennessee.
Yeah, it's something to keep an eye on. I actually made a prediction last week. I thought if they lost to A&M, which I think we all assumed they would, and they did, I didn't think that Jeremy Pruitt would return in 2021, although signs point that way at this point in time. But we'll have to see. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist about anything as it pertains to his future in Knoxville, but it's obviously something to keep an eye on because, if they can try to pin some type of rule breaking to Jeremy Pruitt, they might be off the hook and paying some buyouts and things like that if they want to move in a different direction. Hey, JC, before we get to South Carolina, UAB, playoffs and things like that, I also want to get a quick take from you on Auburn. The Tigers still looking for a head coach here. I saw Auburn Undercover reported that 5 were extended offers to interview 5 names. It looks like Kevin Steele, Alabama offensive coordinator Steve Sarkisian, Billy Napier, and then Clemson coordinators Brent Venables, Tony Elliott. Darren said at the top of the show it looked like Bill Clark also interviewing the head coach at UAB, who Carolina will see on Saturday. Do you have any type of update on what's going on the Plains?
Bill Clark's a heck of a football coach. Just looking at what they've done from not having a program to winning a conference championship, that's tremendous, and to do it during a COVID year where UAB doesn't have the reason, other big schools have. So of all those guys, I think, people don't think about Bill Clark a lot when you talk about these big jobs. Bill Clark would probably be one of the best guys they could possibly hire. It was one of those situations where it looked like Kevin Steele was the leader in the clubhouse. And I think that, he may still be, but obviously they're going to open it up a little bit and try to get some guys interviewed. And today it looked like maybe Billy Napier had the inside track for that job. And I know, from a South Carolina standpoint, Gamecock fans are going to kind of, unfortunately for Shane Beamer, measure his progress at Auburn versus Shane's at South Carolina. Just because that's what fans do. And obviously he was in the mix for the Gamecock job as well. And, so it'll be interesting if he does get it. I think Auburn was going down the fast track based on what I've been told to hire Kevin Steele. I think that was, chucking. They were on the Steele train. And there was maybe some backlash from it. Well, why are you going to fire Gus Malzahn to just promote his defensive coordinator? So they've opened it up a lot more. I think that when you're talking about an interview situation, if they're truly going to weigh all those interviews and things like that, then, obviously, I think Napier could be an impressive candidate. I also think Kevin Steele could be an impressive candidate in that scenario, as well as, a guy like Bill Clark. So we'll see which direction Auburn goes. I know that, my contacts that told me, it's going to be Kevin Steele most likely. Last week, they've come off of that now and say it's going to be a more wide open approach. So we'll see what happens on the Plains. It's always interesting, guys, when Auburn has a coaching change. It's I think we're all sitting here going, man, this probably should have happened like 2 or 3 years ago, but it didn't. So it's one of those things where you're kind of going to look at it and you don't know which way the story's going to go. It's like a choose your own adventure in a lot of ways. So it's going to be one of those really interesting things as they move forward. But I'm sure they'll get a good coach. That's a heck of a job. Probably a hard job, but a heck of a job and a place you can win, obviously, with great fan support, one of the best home fields in college football, in my opinion. And obviously they've had a lot of success. So that's a really good job to whoever gets it. And hopefully for the sake of my Auburn friends, they come out with one that, they can live with and that has a lot of success down there.
JC, just a couple of minutes ago, Shannon Terry, who you know quite well, who founded 24/7 Sports and Rivals, as a matter of fact, tweeted. I'm going to just read his tweet here, JC. You've probably seen it by now, but this is what he tweeted. Coaching searches are filled with craziness and nothing new in 2020. My sources tell us Billy Napier has turned down the Auburn job. Keep a close watch on Bill Clark. His interview went really well. Clark is incredibly well respected by his peers, a good possibility he is next in line. That is from Shannon Terry.
I have no reason not to believe Shannon Terry on that piece of information. No, I was not aware of that.
Okay.
I used to have Shannon set up. I get a text message, whenever he tweets when I was working for him, because I felt like that would be important information. But I took him off automatic tweet notification and put Shane Beamer on the other day. So it's one of those things where I missed that. But I sort of know kind of the connections there. And so I have no reason to doubt that at this point, just knowing kind of, the lay of the land behind the scenes, if you will.
Sure.
So let me ask you this about Bill Clark, because I was about to ask you, is he enough of a personality, right? We don't see the personality Bill Clark the way we see the personality in Napier and some of the other coaches that have floated around in the search. Is he a guy that can fit at Auburn? Is he a big enough personality?
I mean, look, guys, think about we talk about personality, but look at the last 4 coaches they've had. Or let's go back. Pat Dye, obviously is a legend, or was a legend. Rest in peace, Pat Dye. Not a guy that's going to sit there and, win the press conference or talk real big or anything. It's not a Mario Cristobal, okay? Terry Bowden, obviously a lot of personality. Tommy Tuberville, I know he won a Senate race. I don't know that Tommy Tuberville is the most exciting in a press conference personality-wise. Gene Chizik, Gus Malzahn. These guys don't necessarily hire. They hire guys that they like, the powers that be at Auburn like. And that's the bottom line with how they do business down there. That's just kind of what they do. So I think, if you're Auburn, I think that you're going to end up with somebody that some of those guys that kind of run the show down there won't at the end of the day, and there's nothing you can really do about it. They're going to pick who they want. I mean, look, they hired Gene Chizik with a 5-19 record at Iowa State. He comes in, he wins a national championship in year 2. Year 4, he's 0-8 in the SEC and fired.
Right.
I'm stunned beyond all belief that Gus Malzahn lasted this long. Down there. It's just one of those things where they just kind of march to the beat of their own drum. And if that's Bill Clark, great. I think Bill Clark deserves an opportunity. It deserves a big job. People kind of look at the overall record and, it's just UAB and stuff like that. But they don't understand, like, that program was dead in the water.
Right.
Okay. They didn't even have a team, and now they've got a new stadium and enthusiasm's very high, and they've been winning. And he stuck that out. I mean, I think that a guy like that, that's a dynamic leader. No matter what you think about his resume or anything like that, that's a guy that can, steer the ship through the storm, so to speak. And so if Bill Clark got it, I think it's a heck of a hire. And I think, for our audience out here, we're going to probably find out what kind of a coach Bill Clark is this weekend. So, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah, they beat Marshall. They win the Conference USA title this weekend now because of that win. And keep in mind as well, UAB lost 4 straight games because of COVID earlier this year. 4 straight games. It was between somewhere in the middle of November through like December the 6th. And since then they've played a couple, and now they've got a couple wins. And now they've got South Carolina this weekend in the Gasparilla Bowl on Saturday at noon. On ABC down there in Tampa. JC Gamecocks know Tampa well. They just know it as the Outback Bowl, not the Gasparilla Bowl, but that's what they're going to get. Yeah. Actually, I tell you what, before we get to the game itself, give us an update on South Carolina. I loved what Bobo said yesterday. Look, we didn't take a vote or anything around here. When you play in the SEC, you're expected to play, and our guys were expected to show up, and they've shown up. As far as the coaching staff, fill us in. Who's going to be running this team for the next week, and how many players they have?
Mm-hmm. They're sitting right above 50 scholarship guys right now, which, you usually don't play any more than that in a game. But, of course, some starters are gone. Shai Smith's gone. Sedarius Hutcherson's gone. So they're a bit depleted in terms of the roster. I don't want to, overpromise anything for the game Saturday. I think it's kind of like these other games. You just go out there and you want to see a good effort. You want to see them play hard, because they're really – there's not a lot of bullets in the chamber right now. and they're going to go out there and play their best. I think it's actually a good thing for the players. And Mike Bobo's mentioned this before, that, man, these guys have been at it for this season's been a long season. It's been like a 17-week season since the rest of college football started. Then the SEC came in. They've been practicing since July. That's 5 months of going to practice and doing football. And football's not normally that long, Mm-hmm. And so I think it's a good thing they got the Gasparilla, rather than, a Birmingham situation where, this thing stretches into New Year's. Because I think the kids, even though they'll miss some Christmas, they'll get to go home for 2 weeks and then come back for the winter program with a fresh start. So I kind of like the quick turnaround with regards to that. But, they're going to go out there and field a football team and play a game. So that's all I can say about that as far as, the play. Obviously, the problem with playing UAB, instead of playing somebody like that's like a Liberty, like they were talking about playing Liberty, and Liberty's really good. Liberty doesn't play a lot of defense, though. They get in these shootouts and win games 41-38 and things like that. I would like South Carolina's chances better if they were playing a team like that, where they could line up and run it and keep the other team off the field, rather than a UAB, which is actually pretty good on defense. They're a good defensive football team. So that could be a little problematic, because I do think, South Carolina's chances of being successful defensively, getting a lot of stops Saturday, are kind of slim because of the personnel situation. But if you're in that deal and you get stopped a couple of times near the Gamecocks, it could get away from you pretty quick, just because UAB's confident. They've got the majority of their guys. They're going to be wanting to take a shot at an SEC team Saturday, riding high off the momentum of the Conference USA Championship. So, I'm not saying South Carolina has no chance to win. They're only a 5-point underdog, and that's a turnover or something. Stranger things have happened, but it's going to take a big effort by everybody that's left on the team, and probably some performances that we haven't seen this season. He mentioned DeCarrion Joyner stepping up, or somebody like that at receiver. Needing some guys to come back and be good. And so that's kind of what's going to have to happen Saturday for the Gamecocks to win. Now, again, this isn't Kentucky or Georgia or even Missouri. I mean, this is UAB. So there's a better chance for success just given the opponent. But the Gamecocks are still awfully depleted, right now in terms of playmakers, especially the defensive linebacker group is completely gutted right now.
Yeah.
It's going to be a challenge for the Gamecocks simply because of personnel.
JC Shurburtt, owner of thebigspur.com, joining us Christmas week here on the JB and Goldwater Show, Monday as opposed to Wednesday. We're off on Wednesday later on this week. Bryson Lucero was the quarterback who had hopped in for Tyler Johnston III for UAB, but since he's been back, he's not great since he's returned about 2.5 games or so. I've got his stats right here, just 25 of 49 throwing the football for the Blazers, 550 yards, 4 touchdowns. So they're not going to sling it all around the park or anything. You talk about balance. How about this? They've run for 1,800 yards this year. They've thrown for 1,812.
So, pretty good.
So the Blazers, they balance it out on offense. And you mentioned the players Carolina's looking for. Sedarius Hutcherson, of course, not in this game. He's off to the NFL. Shi Smith, Ernest Jones. I mean, they're missing their dudes, JC. And so you're also looking out of that group. You're trying to find some leadership this week to lead you into a bowl game, a place where they hadn't spent a lot of time the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough deal. I mean, and I think that this week with Shane Beamer being on campus and walking around at practice and attending practice and things like that, maybe the guys have a little more pep in their step because they know their new coach is there. You don't want to make a bad first impression. And that's the way they got to look at it is, this year starts right now, this prep for this game and performances in this game. I think about a guy who Mike Bobo mentioned, Tyshawn Wanamaker, redshirt freshman or true freshman this year, probably was a redshirt guy. From what I've heard, he's a guy that could step in and start next season. They like his progress that much. Well, he's going to get a shot to go out there and play. You think about the linebackers I mentioned, everybody from Mo Kaba to Daryl Ware to Eric Shaw to Gilbert Edmond, there's Rodriguez Fitton. I mean, there's a lot of guys that hadn't played a whole lot that are going to play a whole lot Saturday. And look, the best way to get better at football, guys, is to play the actual game, to play the game. You don't get that many chances to do that. And nowadays you really don't, you don't have a lot of full contact scrimmages, things like that. So, from a development standpoint, of course, this game's very, very valuable to a lot of players. And, you just got to kind of hope that, these guys can play together and surprise some people and go out there and, and when you get to a situation like this too, guys, it's about assignments too. I mean, defensively, linebacker assignment football is huge.
Right.
And you're missing all your linebackers. They're not, overly talented or ready right now in a lot of ways. And so, with a team like UAB that likes to stay balanced, likes to run the ball, that's a big concern as well.
Can you give us a quick update on the timeline with Coach Beamer trying to get some coaches in place? I know that he is still wanting to have some more conversations with current members of the staff, and there's some others from all over the place that are being considered as well. But just a timeline on when we could expect to start to see some of these names trickle out.
I was thinking, hopeful that it would be today. Obviously, as the day goes on, it's kind of like that movie, I Am Legend. When the sun starts to go down, you get really anxious because the zombies are going to come out. And I feel that way about this coaching staff deal because, as the day goes on and there's no news, you got to get anxious. You're like, oh, man, another day. And I know the fans, at least the ones I deal with on the Big Spur and on social media and things like that, are very, very anxious to see what this staff looks like. And I get it, but I also agree with Shane Beamer that it's, you got to go try to get it right. And, you got to make sure that you're not stuck with a staff that, you put together just for the sake of doing it quickly. And so I understand, he wants to be meticulous. I don't think there's any huge rush, especially with it being a dead period in recruiting. See, that's why, guys, in previous coaching changes across the country, you see that. You see guys come in and they got the staff together within a week. And the reason for that is that you're usually right smack dab in the middle of a recruiting live period, and then you're about to go into another one in January. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason for everybody doing it quick. We're not in a live period. We're in a dead period till April 15th.
Right.
So there's not going to there's no reason to rush it, especially now with a bowl game and the season's not quite over for the Gamecocks and all that. And I understand that. At the same time, heck, I'm just as curious to see what happens with the coaching staff as everybody else. There's a lot of names floating around out there, and I keep hearing the same names over and over. But it remains to be seen if that's accurate or rumor or what. So we'll see kind of what happens with that. But I am anxious to see the news, but I just don't know if it'll happen this week or not. I would hope that at least some would be announced, but I don't know that for sure that we will get that this week.
I did have a question pop up through our chat room about some of the early signees, not guys who signed last week, but anyone who may have enrolled early. Can they practice during bowl practice as well?
I don't think any of them are.
Okay.
You're allowed to, and look, again, this is one of those things too, where if it had been the Birmingham Bowl, which is on January 1st, everybody's coming back after Christmas. Maybe a guy slides in early and starts practicing, but I know they can't play. Well, actually, they probably could play. They would just lose because everybody's redshirting this year anyway. But no, not that I know of. Nobody's at practice right now with the Gamecocks that I know of.
Yeah.
Now, that's what I know of.
Yeah, so, fair enough.
Let's just because a guy like Marcellus Dial from Georgia Military could realistically, join the team for bowl workouts or whatever. But, with it being such a short week, guys, too, you have to go through an acclimation period and all that stuff, too. So it's a lot different with 1 week as opposed to 2 weeks to get ready.
AC, when we talked to Shane last week, I know we got just a couple minutes left with you, and then we'll let you run, buddy. But when we talked to Shane last week, I mentioned to him, what Dabo for years, he said if anybody was willing to listen to them, that they're a championship program, and it kind of worked out for them up there in the upstate, and they are a championship program. And I asked him, Shane, what's your message? Is South Carolina a championship program? Can you win a national championship here? Literally, those were the words I used. And it sounds far-fetched to fans. But we asked that question for a reason, JC. I asked that question to see, is he going to sidestep the answer, or is he going to embrace the question? He embraced the question. No matter what happens this week, no matter what happens with UAB coming up in the Gasparilla Bowl, Carolina's 2-8. We all know they shouldn't be bowling, but they are. No matter what happens, win, lose, draw, whatever, down in South Florida, what is the message to South Carolina fans with the offseason set to begin Saturday afternoon?
I think the expectation early on needs to be get this thing back to 6 wins in a bowl. I mean, nobody's happy with 6 wins in a bowl anymore, but I think one of the problems is that, Carolina, when Muschamp came in, Carolina was not far removed for the top 10 seasons, from the finishing 4th in the country in 2013. The Muschamp comes in, pulls a minor miracle, to be honest, puts Jake Bentley in at the right time. 2016, they finish up in the Birmingham Bowl. They lost, and they had an ugly game against Clemson, but that was getting it back towards in the right direction. Same thing with year 2 with Muschamp. The issue with this time around, I think, is that, Shane Beamer getting it back to that point needs to be a little bit more celebrated than maybe it was under Muschamp, because obviously this isn't a program right now that's 3 years removed from going 11-2 and finishing 4th in the country. They're 6-16, or actually 8-19 in their last 27 games.
Yeah.
So if you can come in and win 6 and turn it back around and have a nucleus of good players coming back and continue to recruit well and build it, I think that's a positive thing. I think it's the first thing they got to do. And South Carolina folks, I know it's been a tough run, and you may be in for a couple of more years where, Clemson's winning championships and, you're struggling to get to the Liberty Bowl. But, that's where it starts, because right now, you're 8-19. It's going below, I kept using the phrase, keep it afloat for Muschamp. And while you build, and for some reason, they kept it afloat, and then they sunk, for a while. Beamer's got to keep it afloat while he's building and not sink, and that's the situation there. But can you eventually win championships at South Carolina? Yeah. I mean, what you need to do is get back to where Spurrier had it, and then kick in the door when you have the opportunity. South Carolina should have gone to 5 straight SEC championship games between 2010 and 2014, and they did not. It was one game between 2011, 2012, 2013 that cost them, and then in 2014 it was 3 games where the defense completely melted down.
Right.
With one of the best offensive football teams they've had in school history. So next time that opportunity rolls back around, Carolina's got to kick in the door. And if you're the Buffalo Bills in the SEC championship game, so be it, because at least you're playing on that in the not the Georgia Dome anymore, but in Mercedes-Benz for the SEC title, and you're a fixture there. That really helps you recruit more than any win over Clemson ever did.
Right.
I promise you. People have to realize that when it comes to recruiting, championships and hardware, that sells. Big stages sell. Now, obviously, with Clemson being so good now, that game is a big stage. But the SEC championship game is, for kids around the South, that's huge. So what Beamer has to do is get it back to that point and then kick in the door when the opportunity's there. I mean, that's just – and that sounds easier said than done. I mean, because it's not going to be easy to even get back to that point.
Hopefully, no matter what happens this week, Carolina fans will understand that a new era is in Columbia. Win, lose, whatever happens against the Blazers on Saturday, 2021 is a new beginning for Gamecock football. We'll leave it there, JC. Look, man, we were scheduled to have you Wednesday. Not going to be on the air. Scheduled to have you tomorrow. We bumped you to today. So we'll leave it with you with we'll leave the Christmas holiday here for you. Thank you so much for everything you've done for us this year. Honestly, our program couldn't have grown without you. It just couldn't have. You have been as valuable a member of this team as anybody out there. What you do for Gamecock fans and for football fans and just fans of athletics in general, college athletics, thebigspur.com. It means more than you probably ever know. You mean a lot to us, and we really, truly wish you the merriest of Christmases, my friend.
Yeah, same to you guys. I consider you guys friends, and it's just been a lot of fun since that first episode where we were just kind of laughing and going at it, talking about turtles and whatnot. It's been a good vibe, and I enjoy doing this every week. And certainly we have many more weeks to come, fellas.
Absolutely.
And very Merry Christmas to you guys, too.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
There you go. JC Shurburtt, owner of thebigspur.com. Time for a timeout. When we return, the second half of his team, the JC and Morgan podcast, by the way, Mike Morgan, ESPN and the SEC Network. He is going to join us next right here on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Merry Christmas!
Keith Gunther here with McFadden Pest Control, wishing you all a happy holiday season. The only outdoors we want coming inside your home this time of year is the Christmas tree. McFadden Pest Control wants to make sure your family has a safe and enjoyable holiday season. And the best way we do that is to make sure your homes are pest-free. We've been protecting the Low Country for over 40 years. Families trust us. We hope you will too. We're wishing you and your family a Merry Christmas from the entire McFadden Pest Control family.
1 2 1 2 mic check, mic check. 1 2 1 2 mic check, mic check.
Walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes.
5 4 3 2 and 1.
Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more.
Somebody put together a
Bourbon and Whiskey Drinkers of Charleston. Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Low Country. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf team. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
Roller recipe, one of my roller recipe keys is always take care of the ball. And the middle of the ball, he likes to more than sure.
Show. Live, loud, and online.
All right, final hour on this Monday afternoon. Merry Christmas. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. We, of course, are on the all-new JB and Goldwater app and also available at jbandgoldwatershow.com. That app is free. You should download it, and you can watch and listen to our program in its entirety daily around here across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater and individually at Sports Radio JB and, of course, at Darren Goldwater as well. Thanks to JC Shurburtt in that last segment. Coming up at 1:30, a little bit after today, Reggie Merriweather with Clemson. Now, though, time for Mike Morgan with ESPN and the SEC Network. Oh, and also that JC and Morgan podcast. They work together. They've known each other a long time. Before we bring Mike in here, though, so it's the holiday season. I like to tell good stories about people. Mike's the reason why I'm broken in this business.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, because years ago when I was in college, in Columbia, they had this dynamic team on 107.5 station that Mike Morgan started, basically, and every day it was literally one of the high. I mean, I did it every day, whether I was at home, driving around, wherever. Always listened to Mike Morgan on the air and his daily show, and of course, he was the voice of Gamecock basketball and baseball, and he was the greatest voice that the world had ever heard in Columbia. Still is. And I always said to myself, I think I want to do that one day. I like how he does it. I want to do it like that one day. And then I never thought I would do it. And then I got an opportunity. So I always watched and listened to how Mike did things and tried to implement some of that into what I do. And I hope people enjoy that. But Mike and Michael Haney and guys like that who we have on the show often around here, they're the reasons that I do what I do around here. And so I want to tell you that story. Merry Christmas, bud. I don't think he liked the story.
I think he muted his mic.
Oh, he muted it. He got tired of hearing me.
Can't
talk.
unmute their mic. Your mic isn't connected somehow, Mike.
I just heard him a moment
Unmute.
ago. But that's true. It's all true.
I just heard him a second ago as well, and I don't know where he went.
Well, we'll get him back.
You lost your mic
in just a quick moment. Mike lost the mic.
Mike lost the mic. It says their mic.
How about now?
There we go.
Okay. That's like the best compliment I've gotten on this show. And then I just left Jamie hanging because
it's okay. It's story.
That's not right. That's not right. No, in all seriousness, and first off, happy holidays ahead of time to you guys as well. I hear that from time to time from different people in broadcasting in the state of South Carolina, and it makes me feel two things. Number one, incredibly grateful to leave that kind of impact. And of course, I hear from fans, Gamecock fans all the time, still to this day. And I've been gone 11 years, so it's beyond flattering. And then two, it makes me feel a little bit old because if I'm a mentor, that means whoever I mentor directly or indirectly is probably younger than me. I don't feel that old, but I guess in reality, it's time to face reality. I am over 40 now, and there's no getting away from that.
Yeah, well, that's all right. You don't look it, you don't sound it. That's good, right? That's what's important. That's important.
Yeah. Well, I like to think I've had some pretty clean living. When I first started off in radio, all these guys with quote unquote radio voices, the deeper voices, they all smoked. They were all chain smokers. Mm-hmm. and people thought that I smoked. And I said, no, I've never smoked a day in my life. I find it disgusting, quite frankly. And I say that coming from a family of smokers. So I love them, but I hated the habit. So I never got into it. But back in the day, really before my time, before our time, because I guess we're all roughly the same age, me being a little bit older, there was a time like DJs intentionally would smoke because they thought that would help deepen their voice and sound better on radio. So there was a lot of that going on back in the day. Thankfully, I never got into that. I drink occasionally. I'm not saying I'm a Boy Scout, but I think I've taken better care of myself than a lot of the people I saw roaming those halls of the radio station for many years.
Yeah.
And that includes that Michael Haney scoundrel. Boy, was he out of control.
You used to think it was like almost necessary. I mean, even going back to college, I had people telling me, smoking's going to help you. I was like, well, that doesn't go with what everyone else is telling me.
No. And I think too, not to name any names, but like I hear people even today and back when I was in Columbia, and they would have one voice. And then when they would go on radio, either to do a show or calling a game, they'd have to start talking like this, and it would be this over the top. I am a broadcaster, and I wanted to tell these particular people, if it was my place, like, look, dude, you don't have to do that. And I tell broadcasting students this when I talk to various schools, particularly around the SEC. Don't try to be what you think you're supposed to be. Don't try to be the prototype of what an announcer sounds like. Your voice is your voice. You're blessed with one sound or another, and you got to work with it. But don't go ahead and try to mimic what you feel like a broadcasting voice sounds like, because it comes across as so disingenuous. I think listeners pick up on it, and it's just not a good look or sound. Just go with the good Lord gave you. Go with that and do the best you can, but don't sound fake. Don't come up with your regular voice and your broadcasting voice. Oh, and they're up by 2. No, not a good look.
You're either good or you suck, is what Mike is saying.
That's A+ advice. A+.
That's just write that down.
I tweeted it out. I
Okay.
can't tell you. I've given the same advice before too, because people ask me. They're like, "Oh, just even sitting at a bar or something." Someone says, "Oh, you use your announcer voice." And it's like, "What?
Right?
What's that?" This is my voice.
That's like the old. That's like the old Bobby Knight. Put your game face on. What is a game face?
Yeah, what does a game face look like?
What is, by the way,
it's so true. I've had people ask me, not in the business, just kind of like what Darren's talking about. They find out what you do, and they ask you, "What did you go to school for that?" And you take classes, but honestly, there's nothing in a classroom that's going to teach you a whole lot of broadcasting. You either have it and feel like you can do it, or you don't. And but they'll say, "Well, did you take training for your voice?" And I know musicians do that.
Right.
And maybe some announcers have done that. I don't know, but I could not see myself sitting in a classroom telling me how I'm supposed to alter my voice. I don't like the sound of that at all.
A couple of quick updates here, Mike, before we get to some stuff with you. A couple of quick basketball scores I want to pass along. About 17 minutes to go in the game. Clemson up 17 on Morehead State, 41-24. And watch out, maybe in College Station, 5 minutes in, Wofford up 15-5 on the Aggies. Yeah. We all know Wofford's got a pretty good team in hoops this year as well. By the way, also official 9 minutes ago from Louisiana that Billy Napier is staying put with the Cajuns, and he will not be headed to the Plains of Auburn. We'll circle back to that, though, Mike Morgan. Last night or yesterday afternoon, the college football playoff was released. The question that I have is not did they get it right? That's irrelevant. Are those the best 4 teams in college football in the playoff?
They are the most talented teams. Like and unfortunately, I think so many people look at it this way. They know if you don't even have to be a recruit, Nick. You don't have to go knee deep into recruiting to know the same schools every year are getting the most 4- and 5-star kids, right? So they know those brand names continually bring in top prospects, continually are projected to have the highest draft picks. And so they know all that, and they pick those teams. I think in a year of more subjectivity than ever, because we don't have the same amount of data points. We don't have a whole lot of interconference data points. So it really becomes it's almost like a combine of who are the 4 most talented teams. And that's what we have. Now, do I think Texas A&M could win games, could beat somebody in that playoff? Yes. Heck, I think Florida could. But neither one of those teams are going to have a shot at it. Do I think Cincinnati could? I don't know. And that's always going to be the controversial part of this. Let me just say one thing real quick on that. and if you've been following me on Twitter, I've been pretty vocal about this. For 20 years, I despised the BCS. And so what happens now is we have a very fallible, imperfect year. And everybody's upset, and I get it. I don't like it either. I still have an issue with a 6-0 team whose best wins were against Indiana and Northwestern. Put your arms around that for a minute. That gets in the playoff against versus other teams that played 10, 11 games. But when I hear people say, kind of like a couple of coaches, well, we might as well go back to the BCS. That way, at least we have a chance as a Group 5 team. No, you didn't.
They didn't have one then.
They didn't have one then for 20 years.
Right.
For 20 years, we had undefeated Boise State, undefeated Hawaii, undefeated this, that, and the other. None of those teams stood a chance of playing for a national title in the BCS. So if you want to complain that the 14 playoff is not enough and it should be 8, I mean, I've said that from day one. That's fine. If you want to sit there and try and sound like the smartest guy in the room and say, well, it was better with the BCS, wrong. I heard Dan Patrick this morning say, well, with the BCS, it was more objective because it was all computers. Wrong. The computers, I think, were 25% of the equation. The other 75% were based on record and the pollsters. We've never had an all-computer playoff system or BCS system. There's so many people who speak with authority in college football that lack a little thing called facts. So I just wanted to point that out, that no matter what you think about this current system and this current result, please don't tell me the BCS was better. The BCS was tragic. The BCS, keep in mind, would have told 2014 national champion Ohio State, you're not good enough to play for a title, because they were the number 4 seed. They would have told the Alabama team a few years ago that won the national title, you're not good enough because you're the number 4 seed. So do not tell me the BCS was better than any system that we've had in the last quarter century.
To that point, I mentioned something to Darren earlier at the top of the show, Mike, speaking with Mike Morgan here, about having a system in place that has the best teams in college football. That's what we want, right? When they design this, well, we're going to get the best 4 teams in, and that's up for debate every year whether those are truly the best 4. And that's why I asked you that. But I would also like a system where you could maybe have a couple of the hottest teams in the sport in there, because I think that's what would provide for the best playoff model, Mike. I mean, you've called baseball and basketball games your whole life. That's one of the things that makes the postseason of those two sports, although much different from football, that's what makes them so much fun, is you get teams that are hot at the right time of the year, and you never know what could happen. When I look outside of the top 4 this week, I asked Darren this question earlier. I said, give me the name of a couple of teams or names of a couple of teams who could beat those teams up there in the top 4. And he rolled out, I think, great names: Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Florida, Georgia. And I said, well, what about Cincinnati? What'd you say? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Georgia is playing well at the end of the year. Florida, I know they got 3 losses. They lost by 6 in the SEC title game. We all know what A&M is. Oklahoma, Herb Street said it yesterday. Does anybody really want a piece of the Sooners right now? I mean, they're playing really well. An expanded playoff, it's not a given, but I think you could get teams in there. Like, who wouldn't want to see right now an Oklahoma versus an Ohio State, a 3-6 matchup? That would be wonderful for this sport.
Right. Look, we have a situation where Alabama and Clemson have been in this playoff now 6 out of 7 years. It's my best reasoning that we're going to see an Alabama-Clemson final again, just as I thought we would at the beginning of this season. And last year, no one knew LSU was going to be that good. You could see it early on. But the year before that, it felt like a Clemson-Alabama. I mean, we're living, and I've said this for 5 years, and I've had a lot of angry fans from other programs that don't like to hear it. But here is the reality. We are living in an Alabama-Clemson world, and everybody else is just renting space in it. And that's going to be the case with a 4-team playoff, an 8-team playoff, a 12-team playoff, a 2-team playoff. That's not going to change. Eventually it might, but there's no thing in sight that says Nick Saban or Dabo Swinney are leaving. There's no thing in sight that says their recruiting is going to start falling off. There's just nothing that would lead you to believe that that's going to be changing anytime soon. So you got to get over that. What I think is an 18 playoff doesn't fix that, but it allows more people to be involved in the party. You know, you don't have to be the guy at the party that drinks the most, has the most upside down Jello shots, and walks away with the prettiest girl at the end of the night to still enjoy the party, right?
Well, maybe, but sure.
Right? You don't have to be. Yeah, it'd be nice
have at the party,
but you don't have to be Jim Belushi in Animal House to have a good time at the party.
Right.
So if you're Cincinnati, you might not walk out of the party with the prettiest girl. You might not have the best bourbon that was already reserved for Clemson and Alabama. You're drinking Coors Light, and you're going home to your dog. But you had a great time at the party. And so Cincinnati and Coastal Carolina and, BYU in a given year, these teams, in my estimation, deserve a shot at just going to the party. They're not going to win the national title. I don't think that's the point. And again, sometimes when these arguments are made, people make the wrong argument in order to try to make their case. It's not that we believe that if Cincinnati was invited, they're going to win a bunch of playoff games. No, but just to get there, it's kind of like when the mid-major makes the Final Four in basketball, they put a banner up in that arena that's going to stay there for hundreds of years. They don't go home after they lose to the number one seed by 20 points and say, well, this was really a disappointment. Hell no. They just had a great time at the party. And they got invited, and they earned their way to it. So that's the thing. If you want to be more inclusive, and if you want to give more, quite frankly, Power 5 teams a chance that got hot at the right time. I mean, Texas A&M, nobody would want to play them. Nobody would want to play Georgia, who all of a sudden found a quarterback. Nobody would want to play Florida, quite frankly, because if they don't fumble it twice in that game against Alabama, we might be talking about a complete mess if they win that SEC championship. Nobody played Alabama remotely that close in Florida. So I think there's room for it. If we're not going to do it, and we've got 5 more years of this contract, then go ahead and just have a Group 5 playoff. TV networks will pay for it. Mm-hmm. People will watch it. And fans will get a chance to actually enjoy a championship. To me, it makes so much sense. Now, I get why they don't do it, because there's still this pipe dream by Mike Oresco and other people out there in the Group 5 world that they're one day going to get invited to the party. But I just don't see. The only way they get an invite is if we go to 8 and they reserve specifically a spot for the best Group 5 team. And I can tell you this, while Mike Oresco and a lot of other people might want it, there are several Power 5 conference commissioners that'll say, hell no, we're not saving a spot for the Group 5 at the expense of another SEC, another ACC, another Big Ten team. No way, no how.
Mm-hmm. I could ask you right now to give me 5 teams, 6 teams, but let's just start with 4 for the 2023 college football playoff. What teams would you name? 2023.
Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, maybe Oklahoma, and then we'll go from there.
Right. And then, okay, let's throw another couple in there. Georgia, Notre Dame
until they play themselves in or out.
Yeah. Florida. Yeah. Name another one. You can't. That's it. How do you grow the sport unless you grow the platform in which these teams play on?
That's a problem. That's a problem in general. We have blue bloods in basketball, but they don't win it every year. Look at what Kentucky's going through right now. Mm-hmm. Look at what North Carolina's been through in previous years. You watch any basketball season. It's great that we have blue bloods. I love watching blue bloods, but I know by the end of the year, they're not all going to be in the Final Four. There's going to be fresh blood. We have that in college baseball. We don't have that in football right now. And again, whether it's 4, 8, and stop with the 16. We're not going to 16, and nor should we. It doesn't change the fact that the same teams are going to be playing for the national title every year until something changes. Now, look, you can't be like the NFL, which virtually penalizes their Super Bowl champion. You get the toughest schedule the next year, and you get the worst draft picks. That's not going to happen in college football. So Alabama and Clemson aren't going anywhere. It's up to these other programs to find a way to join that platform. And that starts in recruiting and then goes on from there. I think in the SEC, Georgia's been close. Florida's on the rise. Texas A&M is on the rise, but I want to see if they do it next year when they lose a lot of key players, including Kellen Mond, who conceivably has been the starting quarterback for 12 years in College Station. So, and you need Southern Cal to be good again out west, and you need Michigan to be relevant. You need all these things that we just don't have right now in college football. And yeah, you and I, the three of us, are going to watch it and love it no matter what. But you're going to lose a lot of fringe fans that are saying, I've seen this movie again and again. And just like Jaws or Cannonball Run 3 and 4, it doesn't get better, right? I mean, for the average person watching, it doesn't get better to see Clemson, Alabama every year playing for the same stakes.
Speaking of Clemson, Reggie Merriweather ahead here in a few minutes on the college football playoff for the Tigers. Give me a game or two that is not the college football playoff in the bowl season, this bowl season, that you are really looking forward to seeing. I've got two on my radar: the Orange Bowl, North Carolina and A&M, and the other certainly Oklahoma and Florida. The Cotton Bowl. Wow.
Well, you just stole my two.
Oh.
You stole my two. Now, all of that is contingent on how many opt-outs are there, how motivated. See, it used to be we just had to worry about were the teams motivated because a long layoff and maybe they were disappointed that they didn't get to the bigger bowl game, so they went through the motions in practice, and you didn't really see the best product they had to offer. Now the X factor is how many key players are just going to decide, I don't want to play.
Right.
And that's a problem as well in college football for the bowls. If this started with what? Christian McCaffrey, and who was the other key guy that year?
Oh,
there was another key player. Anyway, when that happened, was it Leonard Fournette, right?
Leonard Fournette. It was two running backs, wasn't it?
So you had McCaffrey and Fournette that said, nah, not interested.
Yep.
And we were wondering, okay, is this a one-off or is this going to be an issue? Well, it's become a much, much bigger issue. Kids now are less and less motivated. And I know you could say, well, it's COVID related. No, it's not. This is going to be an issue long after COVID. Kids that know they're going to be a high draft pick in the NFL, sometimes they don't even know that. They're just going to decide after that final game, usually in late November, early December, you know what? I'm out. You guys have fun. Make sure you send over a swag bag and a PlayStation, but I'm going to go ahead and get ready for the draft. If that continues to happen, the relevance of these bowl games becomes less and less, and I think that's a concern for everybody around the sport.
Expand the playoff. Who opts out of playoff games? Nobody. None of them do. They all play.
You would hope not. I certainly would hope not. I'm not positive that's going to be the case, but I would hope not.
You're a Heisman voter. Who wins the Heisman Trophy?
I can't say that. I filled it out literally an hour ago. I will tell you this. It was by far the hardest vote I've had. I've been a voter since 2007. I think that was the Sam Bradford year. I will tell you my ballot is unconventional. I will tell you I didn't go based solely on stats. I will tell you I went on a lot of different X factors in the year of COVID. And I feel very good about my vote, even though I'm not sure if he's going to win. I feel very good about my vote, but I anguished over it because I do take it seriously.
As you should. Absolutely. They're due today, right? All votes are due.
They're due today by 5:00. So, I mean, I was 5 hours ahead of schedule. I expect some bonus points from the Heisman Committee.
Final question here, Mike. Army not bowling. The Independence Bowl canceled. Couldn't find an opponent. Jeff Munkin said, hey, wait a second. Just last week, Southern Cal saying, wait, we deserve to be in the playoff. They get beat. Well, we're not going to be in a playoff. We're not going to be in a bowl game. Forget it. And if they would have gone to a bowl game, they go to the Alamo Bowl. Probably would have knocked Colorado to the Independence Bowl. There's your opponent. He's alluded to the fact that there are teams that just don't want to play Army. How should this situation be resolved?
I think you have to take, well, here's the first thing. If any slot opens up, right, if a team last minute says we can't do this because of COVID, you get on the phone, you call Army, and you invite them. I don't care what the tie-in is. Outside of that, there's not much you can do. Right. There's no more slots. They're not changing it. Bowl games have always been somewhat political in nature with direct tie-ins to certain conferences. They've never been entirely merit-based. If they were, there'd be a ton of decisions that would have gone differently throughout time. So I feel bad for Army. They clearly deserve to be in a bowl game over teams with losing records. But this is the way college football and the bowl system has been run from the end of time. It's not merit-based. I just hope – now, let me rephrase that. I don't hope anyone has to back out because of COVID. But if it does, you better put Army in that bowl game.
I agree. They deserve it. I mean, 9-2, remarkable.
I think that'll be the first call. Should anything happen, that'll be the first call. Someone asked me this question, I think yesterday or 2 days ago. Didn't the committee say if one of the 4 playoff teams has a COVID issue, they won't be replaced and they'll do everything they can to back games up and make sure that those 4 teams play?
Absolutely correct. So let's just say hypothetically, Alabama has a rash of COVID and Nick Saban is allowing his players to go home for the holidays, which is somewhat shocking. But if they come back with 20 cases, including 4 on the offensive line, you can bet your bottom dollar they're not going to kick Alabama out. They will bump everything back.
Yeah. And
ESPN will gladly do it to make sure they've got the 4 best teams. They get the highest ratings. So, yes, there is some flexibility there. I don't think there's any question about it.
By the way, did you see Dabo's coach's ballot?
Ohio State 11th?
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, look,
All right.
I don't blame any coach that has a problem with Ohio State getting in with a 6-0 mark.
I don't either.
Part of the grind of college football, even in a non-COVID year, is going through those 11, 12, 13 games, because the upsets typically happen at the end of the year when a team that is much better than their underdog opponent all of a sudden gets a little worn down, either physically or, more important, mentally, and that's when the big upset happens. So to assume that Ohio State, just because they're the most talented team in the Big Ten, was going to run the gamut and go 10-0, 11-0 is the wrong assumption to be made. So as I've said on our podcast, JC and Morgan, I knew all along Ohio State was going to find a way to get in there, but I don't necessarily like it. I just knew it was reality.
Yep.
And the only thing it did was take a little bit of the omelet off the face of Commissioner Kevin Warren, who bungled and botched this thing from day one. He gets a little bit of a reprieve because at the end of the day, the Big Ten will be represented and they'll get playoff dollars. But no one will forget how the Big Ten and the Pac-12 handled this in comparison to the SEC, ACC, and Big 12. One handled it properly from Jump Street. One shined in every way, shape, or form, and that's Greg Sankey in the SEC. One handled it improperly, although had some major hurdles with the state of California and the state of Oregon. And then another one just inexplicably tried to be the smartest guy in the room and looked like anything but at day's end.
Somehow they still got rewarded. Makes you wonder why you play all the games, Mike. Why even play all these games? You don't need to play that many. Just play 5 or 6 of them. You'll get in there.
Apparently so.
Before we let you run here, I know that you've got a busy week ahead. Where can we hear the golden tones of Mike Morgan nationally?
Well, I've got Auburn tomorrow, and that is a afternoon game at 3:00. So we're replacing Paul Feinbaum for the day.
Perfect.
I'm sure the Feinbaum addicts will be thrilled about that. Now, I think Paul's on vacation, a much deserved one. And then on Wednesday night, make sure while you're doing the last second Christmas shopping or wrapping the presents, tune into SEC Network. John Sunvold and I will have South Carolina State. I just talked to Frank Martin a couple hours ago. They've only played 3 games.
Yep.
I've had teams that have played 8 already. So I don't know what to expect out of South Carolina, but that's who we have. And then I go home for a few days. When I say home, I mean down to Florida, see some family. And then I'll be back up for a game on the 28th. I think that might even be Wofford. Yeah, I've got Wofford and Mercer on ESPNU on the 28th. And then I have my SEC opener, Mississippi State, Georgia on the 29th. Wow. So this is hardly a break for a lot of us this week, this holiday season. A lot of basketball games going on, and I'm not complaining. I'm just glad to be doing games. A lot of them from home, which is different. I'm not going to lie to you, but we're just glad that we got games to talk about and call.
That's right. Well, we're just glad that we get to hear you on the call. Certainly, I'll be watching the South Carolina game Wednesday night. Gamecocks better not lose that one. The Bulldogs are 0-9.
Yeah, that would be rough. Hey, by the way, can I just say thank you to you guys? Number one, always enjoy coming on your show. I can actually see you. We had this situation before where I was awkwardly staring at Goldwater and not seeing JB. You were just this invisible voice.
Yeah.
And then below us, I see the man, the myth, the legend. I always tell people, Stuart Wingo, not a good-looking man, not an athletic man, not the life of the party. But damn it, if you want to save money on a refi or a new mortgage, call that number at the bottom of your screen. I've done it 4 times over the years. And no matter where you are in the state of South Carolina or in the country for that matter, he is going to give you unmatched service on a new mortgage. Give him a call. Stuart Wingo. Tell him Mike, JB, and Goldwater sent you.
Hey. And thank you for being the guinea pig for this new this new setup here.
I'm always the guinea pig. Why not?
Well, I talked to Mike the other day on the phone, and we were talking about this video. I said, I don't know. I hate the damn thing. I told Darren from day one I didn't want to do it, but you were right. We needed to do it, and it all worked out just fine. So
looks great. And you guys look great.
I appreciate it.
Everybody looks great but Wingo, but he's going to save people money. We don't do that.
Well, I have to wear a hat for a few days. I went to get my ears lowered on Wednesday, and she didn't exactly do what I thought.
Well, you can't get your ears necessarily lowered.
That's what they say,
Okay.
What kind of barber are you seeing?
Yeah, I don't want to call them out, but
that's a plastic surgeon thing.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, boy. As soon as the first little thing went, I said, oh,
yeah,
be wearing a
it
hat.
happens. It'll grow back.
It'll grow back. It does, except for on top, but the sides they always grow back. So
there you go.
That's good, Mike. Look, you and I have been friends for a while, and I told you at the top of this thing, you're the reason I get into this business, and I know that I've done this in years past, but I truly mean it when I tell you, Merry Christmas, and thank you so much for everything you've done for our program, which is most important to Darren and I now. But for me in particular, in my life, you're an inspiration to me. And I just really appreciate it. And we look forward to continuing this with you much more, wink, wink, in 2021. But thank you so much, my friend. I hope God blesses you with the merriest of Christmases.
Absolutely. That means a lot. It really does. And it's amazing. When I come on your show, I hear a lot of nice things from the good people at Charleston. Charleston deserves a good show. And they have one with you guys. So keep up the great work. Love jumping on every time. And everybody out there, have a great holiday. We'll talk to you in 2021. Which cannot possibly be a worse year, so it promises to be a better one.
That's right.
That's right.
Thank you, Mike.
See you guys.
There you go, Mike Morgan, ESPN and the SEC Network, on Twitter at Morgan on Air. Time for a timeout. When we return, Reggie Merriweather with the Clemson Tigers right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control.
Is your old car really scary? Does it look dreadful or smell awful? Don't be frightened. There's never been a better time to trade in your spooky old car. Stokes Volkswagen just received a new shipment of the VW Atlas and VW Crossport. But here's what makes that even sweeter. Every new Atlas and Crossport is $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, every 2020 Volkswagen is available with 0% financing. That's right. You get both the huge discount and 0% financing. So if you want to play trick or treat at other dealerships, that's okay. Come see us at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or visit stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
Merry Christmas!
Keith Gunther here with McFadden Pest Control, wishing you all a happy holiday season. The only outdoors we want coming inside your home this time of year is the Christmas tree. McFadden Pest Control wants to make sure your family has a safe and enjoyable holiday season. And the best way we know how to do that is to make sure your homes are pest-free. We've been protecting the Low Country for over 40 years. Families trust us. We hope you will too. We're wishing you and your family a Merry Christmas from the entire McFadden Pest Control family. McFaddenPestControl.com.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
Marv!
Harry?
Why the hell did you take your shoes off?
Why the hell you dressed like a chicken?
The JB and Goldwater Show.
From a treehouse?
Final segment here on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back. The JB and Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Don't forget, I know that the family's going to be in town and you're going to be eating all week long and things like that, but don't forget about our friends at DB's Cheesesteaks. Their cheesesteaks are still tasty even during the holiday season when y'all have ham and prime rib. That's what we're doing. We're smoking a prime rib on.
I think we're having ham tonight.
Are you?
That's a rumor.
I'm actually going to put a ham on the smoker today myself for some stuff during the week, but we're doing Low Country Boil Christmas Eve, prime rib Christmas Day. I'm going to smoke it all day. That's what I'm doing. That's what we're
Sounds
doing.
good to me.
That's what we're doing. But don't forget about DB's Cheesesteaks, dbscheesesteaks.com. And don't forget, if you got family in town, head over to Patriots Point and maybe tour the museum, patriotspoint.org as well, for more information on that. Let me know when we get Reggie in here.
Yeah, it's my bad. I called the wrong number.
We'll plug him right in here in just a moment. Clemson right now, 57-38, with 7 minutes to go in the second half over Morehead State. And it's tightened up down there in College Station. A couple of minutes left in the first half. Wofford and A&M Terriers lead that one by 2, 25-23 so far. All right, to the upstate we go. We'll finish out our Monday afternoon with Reggie Merriweather, former tailback at Clemson and currently roams the sidelines. And he's probably like a lot of those guys in that program now. They don't have enough fingers left for all the rings. Another ACC championship to celebrate for Clemson. But we all know what's on the horizon, another college football playoff appearance. Hey, bud.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for having me again today.
Absolutely. Sorry we're a little bit late. We've been kind of back to, there's a lot going on this weekend, man. Yes. All this playoff stuff, and you got Army, and you got 2-8 Carolina. They made a bowl game too, Reggie. Don't forget about the Gasparilla Bowl. You got a bunch of stuff going on out there. So, sorry.
Well, no, I was about to say, I tell you what, when it comes to the TFP and what's going on right now, one of my favorite Griswold movies, when him and Clark are out there, his cousin, he's got that hose pipe in his hand and he's putting it out of sewage. The shitter's full, Clark. The shitter is definitely full. And you talk about, I've been listening to the committee and the scapegoat guy and all this type of stuff for the last couple of days, and listening to interviews and stuff. And, you talk about guys, having a chance to go to a bowl game and kind of prove themselves. And, like I said, you got 2-8 teams, 3-7 teams, all these guys going to bowl games and stuff. But, I mean, what really is it that we like about bowl games, right? I mean, the matchups. Okay, so we've got Power 5 schools again, pretty much the same teams it's been the last 6 college football playoffs.
Yeah.
And we haven't got any better answers from the college football committee. And it's like, okay, if I'm Texas A&M or I'm Cincinnati or I'm Coastal Carolina, for instance. Like, come on, man. Like, why risk life and limb, to play in a game that, only means something, to the record books and not to the team that's worked hard and played and stayed COVID-free and all that type stuff, over, these last few months. And then not to mention, most of these guys are going to miss the holidays with their family because of COVID protocol. And, it's just crazy. Craziness.
Well, it sounds like you are echoing Dabo's comments. Are you saying that you think that it shouldn't be Ohio State in there?
Again, and we talked about this, a couple weeks ago, in the sense of it being the 4 best teams. I don't know if Ohio State with six wins is the best team out there. I mean, a couple more games and they could improve themselves, but again, Power 5, then it's everybody else. So if we're going to continue to take the same rhetoric that we've been doing these last few years and the type of stuff that's been going on, why even have a committee? Go back to the computer where I can put in all my stats and, strength of schedule, all that crap, and then go from there. So I wouldn't say Dabo and I are on the same page about it, but we're pretty close.
Well, or just separated. I mean, if you're never going to give a G5 team, if you're never going to give them the opportunity, then separate it or expand the playoff and make sure that the best look, not all G5 teams. You could have an undefeated group of 5 team who's still not going to be as good as a 2-loss Power 5 team. We all get that. But if you have an expanded playoff, at least it'll give them an opportunity to get in there and prove that on the field. Is that fair?
Yeah, I agree with that. And even this way, I was talking about this too. So why not make the conference championship the first round of the CFP?
Mm-hmm.
And then that way, like you said, the guys have something to play for, and they're not, opting out early or doing all this. So again, they said it like this on ESPN too. Why not open up? So instead of it being a 12-game conference, not 12-game conference, 12-game season, why not make it 10 games, and then you play 2 out of conference, Power 5 or whatever you want to call it, and then so you don't leave the little guy out. Replace one of your conference games with a Citadel or whoever it may be, so they don't get left out. But then that playoff game, it's a CFP deal. So there's other ways to do it, but continuing to do it this way, I think it's asinine. And it's like politics, man. I mean, it's you can't talk your way out of this. Everybody sees what's going on, and yet they continue to do it. And so, and again, like Ohio State, continuing to change the landscape and the rules to fit the agenda. But I get it, So I just think people are getting fed up with the scapegoat deal of the representative and not hearing everybody's vote or reason why they voted.
Reggie Merriweather, 147 here on this Monday afternoon. Well, there's a reason why they all voted for Clemson, because they are one of the top 4 teams. Matter of fact, they're one of the top 2 teams, and they're in there. They, no pun intended here, sacked Notre Dame on Saturday. 6 of them, as a matter of fact, and put Ian Book on the ground early and often, and this thing was literally over at halftime, 24-3. Notre Dame, not a team that can come from behind like that necessarily, especially against Clemson, the way they were playing. And look, Reggie, you and I talked last week. You, Darren, and I talked last week. Excuse me, Darren. I didn't mean to leave you out of the conversation there, right? We're all team here. About, not just Trevor being back in the game, but the middle of that defense. And boy, they proved it.
Yeah, absolutely. You think about having Davis back. I mean, he's a guy who can take on a double team. You think about Notre Dame having that great, front offensive line. I mean, they've got some big boys up front. They've got a great defensive line as well. They got a great linebacker crew. But the difference in this game, obviously, was Trevor Lawrence being able to use his legs to open up that run game for Travis. And then again, just the play calling was, different. Not to take anything away from DJ, still threw for 400 yards. But Trevor Lawrence, everybody knows now, he's just not a pocket passer. He can use his legs to extend plays and get out of trouble. And obviously, Travis Etienne, 10 carries over 100 yards. And for Trevor Lawrence to spike the ball on third down, with 20-something seconds left. And Dabo almost imploding on the sideline, and then Travis Etienne breaking 2 tackles and, running 50 yards for a touchdown, man. Just goes to show you, man, when this team is healthy and hitting on all cylinders, they're one of the best offenses in the country. And, Dabo's speech after the game, I think he hit the nail right on the head. I mean, we even talk about Heisman voting. Why do they do it so early? And, votes had to be in by, I guess it was yesterday. So hopefully he's in the conversation. But you've got a guy who's literally won 30-something ball games, only lost one ball game in his college career, and he's going to go on to be a top draft pick. And, it's just a shame that he and a few other guys that will be laminated all through the college football record book, but it's not in even the mention for, the most prestigious or whatever fan award that there is in, the Heisman. So it's crazy.
Let me ask you this. You've now seen up close and personal Notre Dame play their toughest two opponents, Clemson and Clemson. Mm-hmm. So after the second game, after Saturday's game, there is a large sentiment of the fans, college football fans, saying Notre Dame can't hang with Alabama. Notre Dame shouldn't be in. It should be A&M or someone else in over Notre Dame. Having seen Notre Dame's best and having seen Clemson kind of take apart Notre Dame, how good is Notre Dame? Do they belong as the number 14? Or
well, again, it just depends on which Ian Book shows up. I mean, you're not going to find a better front seven in college football with that defense at Notre Dame. I mean, they've got All-Americans at linebacker and on the front four. I think they're very good up front. I think they're good in the secondary, even though they give up a ton of yardage to us. But I think, again, if you check their resume, I mean, they played a couple like Louisville. Louisville has a really good offense. They just couldn't put two and two together. I think they hung with them with the 12-7 win. I thought that was a decent game. Obviously, we haven't seen them as a powerhouse. Ian Book, again, he's the game manager. He can get you a first down with his legs if he needs to. And obviously, like you said, they haven't had a come behind win. So obviously, when they get down by 21 points, it's hard to not be a game manager. You have to go out there and make big time plays. But I think they can hang with Alabama. Now, will it be a 28-point blowout? It depends. I think both teams have a lot of film to watch. I think both teams have a lot of pluses. And then Alabama, again, you look at what they've been able to do their last few games. I mean, they've given up some big-time points. They almost scored 100 this weekend, against Florida, which is a really good offense run by Kyle Trask. And they had a really good running game, too. So depends on which Ian Book shows up. And obviously, again, you talk about Notre Dame and their history. It's almost like Ohio State. They haven't been able to really show up in the big-time games and win. But I think that they can make it a game with Alabama. But if they don't, if it's a blowout like a couple years ago, and Ohio State's the same way, I think that, again, the CFP has a lot to answer for in the coming year.
Yeah, and I don't know that the committee wanted to see A&M and Bama play again either, at least in the first round there, because A&M was sitting there at 5, but that's neither here nor there. They could have fudged the rankings a little and had A&M play Clemson.
Right. Who knows?
Who knows? Hey, Reggie, let me ask you about two players, a couple of things that happened in this game. Number one, so the targeting on Nolan Turner late in the ball game, that is going to officially require him to sit out the first half of the Ohio State semifinal, correct?
Yes, he will have to sit out.
Yes. And he's playing remarkable football, and so is this guy, EJ Williams. I mean, come on, Clemson every year they just a new Jerry Rice comes out of nowhere. He has the best game of his young career, 4 catches, 80 yards. We all saw the magical one, the one-hander. I mean, this kid, and I know he's had catches throughout the year. He's been playing all season, but what did this game do for him?
I tell you what, they challenge each other in that meeting room. Obviously, again, EJ Williams is one of those guys that's kind of got lost in the mix when you talk about Powell and Rogers. But I tell you what, that catch he had on the sideline, I've been getting snapshots of it the last couple of days. But every time I see a new angle, it's almost reminiscent of that catch that Ross had against Alabama in the championship game, where everybody on the sideline you could see even if they pull their mask down, there's a couple guys that had their mask pulled down. You could see their mouths just gaping open, like wow. And you know what I mean? And to see this type of talent, I know we keep talking about Higgins and all those Mike Williams and all those guys that we had in the past, but they've kind of laid the foundation for wide receiver U. And the future, man. You talk about Ladson, the guy, all those guys that have been hurt, injured, all that type of stuff, man. The wide receiver room is pretty deep, and it's good to see a young man like that get out and be able to make big time plays and kind of cement himself, for a spot coming next year. Because every year you got a guy coming in that's trying to take your place, so you got to make those plays and you got to show up on film every game.
Especially Clemson. So in this, you had Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne. Do their thing. Here comes, Williams. I mean, he shows up. You got Amari Rodgers. He does his thing. The best players played their best games, and Clemson, of course, marches forward. And now they get Ohio State. We got about 3 minutes left in this segment here, Reggie, and then we got to let you run. 8 o'clock, January the 1st. What is the schedule like for the next week or to 10 days as they prepare for the Buckeyes, and an early look, in your opinion, at that matchup? Some important pieces to keep an eye on when they play on New Year's Day.
Well, again, you've got two quarterbacks that know each other pretty well. Obviously, the game last year had to come back and win. So I think both teams both coaches know everybody pretty well. So the big thing for me in this game, again, turnovers, protecting the football. How efficient can we be on third down? Just a little stuff. Can we find ways to get number 9 the football? And can he effectively carry the team like he did last year, receiving and doing all of that? So, Clemson defensively, Venables is going to cook. Doesn't matter, what team shows up. Venables is going to cook regardless. And I think if we get everybody back healthy, it's going to be a very good matchup. And again, Justin Fields, we've seen him shaky in a couple of games this year. Northwestern, Indiana, so he's got some opportunities to turn over the football there like he's done in the past. But again, getting pressure, being effective on third down, if I'm on offense, I'm Trevor Lawrence, and extending plays with my legs, I think that's going to be the big difference. Because if you look at Ohio State up front, they're the same team as Notre Dame, probably a bit more athletic. They've got some goons in that secondary with guys that have first-round NFL potential. So again, you have to make plays when they call your number, and I think this game is going to be as good as any that we've seen. But I think the advantage is for Clemson. I'm not saying that I love them by 21 in this game, but I'm just saying that they've got the scars, they've got the wounds there. Of the season, they've been down in some games, they've had to come back, so they know what needs to be done to win this one. And obviously, you talk about coaching. I give coaching to Clemson in this one as well. Obviously, Ryan Day is a good coach. They've got some great recruits there. But if I'm looking at Tony Elliott right now, Brent Venables, they've hit a stride these last couple of games. And, Trevor Lawrence back there, again, they're going to cook. And I think this is going to be a high-scoring ball game. And it's going to be another good one for the record books.
7.5-point favorites are the Tigers. When do they leave for New Orleans, Reggie?
I tell you what, I think they're going to go down maybe the day before, but it's going to be weird. There's no type of bowl travel deals, and it's going to be a weird year. You still get bowl gifts and all that good stuff, but as far as doing the activities, they're not going to be able to do all that just because of COVID. And like I said, they've got a lot going on, and like I said, hopefully everybody's get a chance to spend a little time with their family and just get ready for this game. But like I said, every year, man, they've had a chance to go to a bowl game and spend it with the family. They're either in Orlando or California or wherever. This year, it's a lot different for the COVID landscape. But hopefully, everybody's safe, happy, healthy, and can enjoy the team. And like I said, get ready to make this run.
Well, we hope you stay happy and healthy as well, my friend. Reggie, you've been a friend for a while. Thank you so much for everything that you do for our program. You're a great Tiger. We know that, but you're a great man. And Darren and I wish you the merriest of Christmases, my friend. We'll be off until right after this game is played. We'll be back on January the 4th, that Monday, and we really look forward to speaking with you then. Can't thank you enough for everything, and just have a wonderful holiday season, okay?
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys, man, and always go Tigers.
You got it, man. There you go. Reggie Merriweather joining us from the upstate. We are out of time, but we've got much more on this tomorrow, our final day for a little while.
Yep.
Darren and I are going to go enjoy the rest of the holiday season with our families. Thanks to Reggie, Mike Morgan, and JC Shurburtt for joining us today on the JB and Goldwater Show. By the way, it's the start of the winter solstice, and it's also National French Fried Shrimp Day.
Oh, fried shrimp. Head to Dog and Duck. There are 3 locations, locally caught, fresh fried shrimp. Awesome, awesome stuff.
Fantastic. This has been awesome, too. I think we got it all in.
We did.
We appreciate it. Thank you to all of you for watching and listening to our program. JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, is out of time. Thanks to Darren, as always. Have a marvelous Monday afternoon. And we're back tomorrow at noon right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control.